Alright guys, welcome to something new that we're going to be doing, which is our YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going over a patch rundown, patch 9.16. I have my buddy Rocket here, go over the patch notes with me. Alright Rocket, you ready to go over some patch notes?
Dude, ready as I'll ever be.
Alrighty, so obviously the biggest thing in the patch note is the new Pantheon update. Um, Rework. I've looked at a little bit of his gameplay. It looks pretty broken. I want to go over his...
Yeah, I haven't actually tried it myself,
I haven't either,
but
but I heard lots of good things about him. But Pantheon was the biggest thing that got updated with this game with the patch. Then we have some pro play champ. Got some nerfs finally. Go ahead and start with that, buddy.
finally, praise the Lord, dude. um, so so we'll start off with the Azir nerf, which I don't really think is like that huge of a nerf. That what they've basically done is they've reduced the Q cooldown late game.
Yep,
From so
after level 2.
at max rank it used to be at max rank it was 5 second cooldown, and now it's going to be max rank 7 second cooldown, which I don't really think is going to make a massive difference, but it at least it does hurt as late game. So
Yeah, I think anything to hurt this champion is good because he's just giga strong when it comes to competitive.
yeah,
And I think it'll punish your ability to. You can't just ban your soldiers everywhere. So overall, I think it's a pretty good nerf. I think it's good because it's starting at level 2 rank, so it's affects level 2 all the way to level 5 rank. So you'll early game, like, you'll still have to be very cautious with how you place your soldiers and how aggressively you throw them. We'll have that cooldown. It's a pretty decent sized cooldown early. But overall, I'm happy to see Azir nerfed. I'm tired of seeing Azir versus Corki. And speaking of which, we're gonna move down to our next champion, which is Corki. Even Riot itself says that, hey, he's played way too much in pro play. His damage is too reliable. So we're just gonna nerf his base stats. Um, I probably would have gone with the other thing I saw, because I read a little bit down in the patch notes, was that they didn't nerf Klepto, which is kind of sad because
yikes.
all of these champions are kind of, they're good, but they're amplified by Klepto. So I was hoping to see a Klepto nerf, but they decided to just nerf some champions' space damage and some of their skills. But overall, Corki just got a basic AD nerf to his base AD as well as his growth on his AD.
What you have to think, the main thing that you want to keep in mind with these like base attack damage nerfs is that it also affects his Trinity Force power spike, because obviously that's like 100% of his base AD.
Yeah,
Um, so not only is it nerfing his ability to sort of poke you in the early laning phase, but or poke slash trade, but it also nerfs his Trinity Force power spike, and those were kind of the two main things which made him a very annoying champion, as well as his like late game uh scaling.
scaling. Yeah, with
So
getting a bunch of items.
yep,
I
you can
honestly
make him
wish
feel
that
like a meme character.
they would do something with Triforce because it feels like Triforce champions are just much stronger than Black Cleaver champions. At
Yeah,
any point in the game, I feel like even like any role, right? You're playing top lane, like a Jax with like Triforce just feels a lot stronger than like even a Fiora. Like Fioras don't even build Cleaver anymore; they pretty much build Triforce. And in the jungle, like a lot of champions that can build Triforce over Cleaver, they just feel a lot stronger. I wish they would do something to either make Cleaver stronger or to make Triforce maybe a little weaker. That way, not it
yeah,
can't be
it
played in
definitely
every role.
it feels like as well any champion that builds Triforce, it really feels like you can't bully them much early game either, because they have this huge late game uh strength, yet you can't really bully them too much in the early game. Jack's been a huge example,
Yeah.
and Corki as well.
Moving on down to a very interesting change. I read this change, my eyes opened a little bit, to be honest.
Hoo-hoo.
So Doctor Mundo has gotten a
The doc is in.
huge tenacity buff. This is the attempts for Riot to make Mundo a more viable champion in the top lane. Just trying to make tanks, I think in general, just feel more viable. I
Hmm.
also feel like this could be a very good jungle champion because of his E buff as well. But we'll see if we see hopefully more tanks other than Sejuani being played in either jungle or top lane. I think it'd be very cool to see something other than bruisers. I think it's healthy for the game. So the W tenacity going all the way to 30%, which is what it used to be late at the highest rank, being at all ranks. Means that you don't have to actually put any points in W. You just put the one, and then you're good to go. And you can focus more on putting points on Q and E. Will help his laning phase.
Yeah, the tenacity is huge considering you can combine that with Merc treads and like he gets so much tenacity. Like
Yep.
he can just he's suddenly just gonna be able to shrug off any CC on him.
Yeah, he's going to be very, very good frontline. Should be very interesting. That, and then of course with his E, E allows him to have better trading. Obviously because he's going to have it up faster. Just allows for better trading in lane and out of lane. Maybe making him a decent split pusher, and also can do objectives pretty easily. Because of the cooldown.
I'll tell you something very interesting about the E actually. So the E, the extra attack damage that you get from the E lasts for 5 seconds. That means that
Wow,
once you rank it just up to 3, that means that you can permanently have bonus AD.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's actually very strong. So moving on down, we have Echo, who's I love this champion. I think he's kind of strong. He's in a weird place because he doesn't have range to be able to compete with the range champions that are in the meta right now, like Azir Corki. But he's an assassin, but he also has wave control. He has wave manipulation very well. He can also split push very well. So this champion is very interesting. So giving him more damage, basically plus 10 at all ranks of his E, just allows him to be healthier early, with able to do a little bit more burst damage. And then the Chrono
He's gonna be
Break,
able to trade a lot better.
and then his Chrono Break cooldown is massive because being able to have his ulti is going to turn into a Lux ulti. The sense that
Yeah.
late game, he's going to have 50% or 50% cooldown with 40% CDR. Going to go down to about a 30-second cooldown.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
So that champion will have his he can play that which is fun because Echo is always known as to how well they can play their ultimate. So having the ability to have maybe more than one ultimate in a team fight is very scary because that does a lot of damage.
Potentially, yeah.
It's very scary to see. So I mean, Echo needed these buffs. He's not very strong. Now he feels like he'll be kind of maybe like an A tier mid laner. I wouldn't put him in S tier just yet. I think he's an A tier mid laner just because his ability to wave control with his Q and then being able to roam with his E and his R for dive potential especially will make him very strong. The thing that I'm very happy to see is Ezreal getting nerfed. Always, always, always love to see Ezreal nerfs. I feel like Ezreal's too safe of a champion. He's like the most consistent. Like, I have a really bad lane that I have to play against. I'm just gonna pick Ezreal because
Yeah, he's
Ezreal
like
scales. Ezreal just scales, and it doesn't. You don't have to even be good at Ezreal because you can just build. Now with the build, you can literally just go tier Iceborne, and you have Luden's Echo, and you do so much damage. You don't even hit anything but just your Q. So the champion is super strong. I love the changes that they made to the E. Personally, myself, before we go into the Q, I want to talk about the E. I love this cooldown nerf because he is very, very hard to kill in lane. Giving him a 25-second cooldown on his E allows him to do.
huge.
Allows him to do. You can either go aggressive with your E, and you don't have it, so you're very prone to ganks, or you have it once to live through a gank, and then guess what? A Blitzcrank Q has a faster cooldown than the Ezreal E. Same with Thresh Q. So it makes the champion very susceptible to dying in lane, which is what's needed. Because this champion feels like it's basically impossible. You really have to mess up with Ezreal to die in lane. Or you have to get ganked like a ton and blow flashes. But and then obviously the Q to the Mystic Shot is just because the AP build is too strong right now. It does way too much damage. So that's why they're nerfing that.
Yeah, they don't want people building Ludens.
Hopefully
They
they
want
don't.
people to stick to AD. I mean, you can
That's
tell with all the changes that they've been making to Ezreal, like you can tell they're trying to make people build AD for Ezreal. They don't want
yes.
like the AD AP option because
Yeah.
they realize, hey, if we, you know, AP is always somehow going to be like stronger, or at least in this case, it was actually hybrid,
Well,
like building AD first and then AP.
The reason why it was stronger is because it's harder to build against AP champions than it is to build against AD champions. There's a lot more items in the game to counter AD
Yeah,
champions,
100%.
whereas AP champions that get ahead are very hard to kill. There's just very few items in the game that can stop them. So, especially when you're doing a hybrid build like that, hybrid builds always are to be just very scared because there's nothing you can do to tank it. It's just he's gonna melt you. It's just what it does. So moving on down, we have Fiora getting a buff, right? Yeah, it's a buff to her laning
Yep, yep.
phase, which is kind of scary because it's Fiora. She doesn't need anything to her early game because her late game she's a monster. But they decided to give her a buff to her E, probably to help her have a better chance against the top laners, the premier top laners in the world right now that are Aatrox, Renekton, and Jax. So giving them better dueling potential early, having that cooldown being decreased early, same cooldown late game, but then obviously the attack speed late game is very strong.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I don't think the 2 second reduction on E is gonna be like that impactful in terms of lane phase, but like the bonus attack speed, like later on into the game, that's
Yeah,
gonna you're gonna really feel the effect of that.
especially when you have a Triforce running around because that's what you build on her
Hmm.
now. Moving on down, we have Jax's Q getting cooldown. This is mostly, I think this is mainly for his jungle player. It helps him clear
Okay.
and make his ganking much more viable with an 8 second cooldown. And I mean, it's pretty good also for lane because you're able to get out of you can play more aggressive with Jackson laning phase just because you can jump around. You don't will take as many skill shots, and if there's a gank, you can just simply loop around. And you have it up in 8. So that's my overall opinion on Jax. I think he's very. I think he's a pretty good champion. He's pretty good in the jungle, pretty good in top lane as well.
Yeah, he's I don't think he really needs to be changed too much right now.
No, I
But
think he's in a pretty good. He's in a pretty healthy state.
I would literally just say the same thing. Like in terms of lane phase, I don't think the Q cooldown like being reduced helps him too much. However, like in the jungle, that can definitely be a much more
Yeah,
uh like
I see.
helpful tool
Yeah, I see as a
in
more
the
viable
purpose.
jungle buff than as a top lane buff.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
moving on down to a very interesting champion for Riot to buff because Riot has always been either the problem with Kassadin in League of Legends is either that he's super broken or he's trash. There's
Hmm.
no in between with Kassadin because they don't know how to fix this champion. He's part of a select group of champions, just like the champion below him that's on the list, that they're either very strong and there's nothing you can do about them when they reach a certain point. They're like a ticking time bomb, or they're just terrible and you're trolling if you're picking them. So they decided to buff Kassadin's base attack damage modifier. Now you say it's AD, but he's an AP champion. Well, this helps with your early being able to get rid of you're playing against like medium ranged opponents or even like melee opponents, very strong. Also helps with your clearing of minions so you can farm more consistently with your W. So it just feels like a nice buff to his laning phase. Obviously late game 170 plus 0.8 AP is pretty strong. But Kassadin is supposed to be that late game monster, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like he ever gets there. So these buffs will help his damage get to that point.
I'm sure what's gonna happen with Kassadin is that they're gonna like buff him until he's essentially broken in solo queue. Because he's not gonna be playing pro play. Like they don't play champions like Kassadin in
He
pro
actually
play because
he actually got played before his buff on pro play in Korea.
oh, did he?
He got
Oh,
played.
I completely missed that.
Griffin played Kassadin mid. Now the team they were playing against was trolling because they played a Klepto Gangplank mid lane against it. So they were kind of trolling, so Kassadin won, but I mean it was a very easy matchup to farm against and then scale late game into. But yeah, they did Chovy did play mid lane before the buff.
Dude, I've like missed a couple of weeks of Korea and all this
Yep.
is happening. I've
Korea's
I've missed a
spicy. It's
lot,
not
dude.
EU's not the only spicy region, okay?
I
Alright,
need to
so
watch more LCK.
yeah, I love watching LCK. So next champion on the list is LeBlanc. Another one of these champions that's kind of like everyone in the league community gets very nervous when you're buffing LeBlanc because LeBlanc is just one of those champions that Riot cannot balance, and they've gone through like 6 reworks of this champion. So like when you see a buff to LeBlanc, you're like, oh god, here we go. So thankfully, it's only 0.1 AP. It's just a way to buff her damage, especially early game. I feel like her early game damage isn't very consistent, and being able, especially when you're playing against a lot of these wave clear mid laners, as an assassin, if you can't poke them down, it just feels like you can't do anything in the lane because you're just gonna get shoved in and shoved in and shoved in, and you're gonna lose XP, or just you just lose trades because they scale better than you do. So I think it's actually pretty good buff because I haven't seen a lot of LeBlanc recently at all. So in solo queue or in professional play. So seeing a Q buff could help her a little bit, but I don't think she's still like as strong as she used to be.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of trading early on in the game, I don't think LeBlanc like was very is very good at that right now. I feel like a lot of champions out traders such as Ari. I think like that matchup used to be very even, but now like I feel like
Ari's
Ari just wins that
definitely,
matchup.
yeah. Ari's a very strong champion in the meta period right now. So yeah, I think LeBlanc definitely will lose that. The next champion, I'm very sad to see this buff on because I thought
Oh
they
no 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 no!
I thought they finally got rid of Lux support in the meta. I thought she was gone, never gonna come back, and then they do this. So they buffed Lux's W shield, the base shield, obviously a lot higher, and then the max shield when you get the double proc of your W is very strong. 300 HP is a lot of HP. That's your entire ignite, in case you were wondering. Um,
Hmm.
so being able to see this shield, it's a huge buff. It's not to her early laning; it's to her late game. So it just means that later in the game, Lux and her teammates are going to be very hard to kill because of the shielding. And if you partner that with the top of another champion that has shielding, they've added champions now that can shield bash and break that. But this champion just overall, her early game is strong because your bot laner, any ranged bot laner with Lux wins lane guaranteed because of the poke. And in late game, your W just keeps them alive forever. So just Lux is very hard to play against in the bot lane. I don't like seeing her, so I'm sad to see her get buffed. But I decided to buff her.
I have a feeling a Lux skin is coming soon
I
with
think
these
so.
with these
Maybe
buffs.
maybe that's what the championship skin's gonna be. Heard it here first.
Who
Championships,
knows? Who knows?
championship Lux. All right, so this next pick, Vedius would be very happy to see it getting buffed. Good old Vedius. Shout out to the
Hmm.
LEC. So Nocturne recently in the spring season, Nocturne was a terror in the jungle. In pro play and in solo queue, Nocturne was one of the best, if not the best jungler in the meta. Now, with junglers, did I say top laner? I did say
Yeah.
jungle. Okay, one of the best junglers in the meta, but he got kind of overshadowed now because it's pretty much now just Sejuani versus Gragas, or boring
Resident Sleeper.
jungle matchups that there's only 3 good junglers in the meta right now. So seeing these stats will help Nocturne be stronger, help him be able to duel earlier, which is always I'm a big fan of. So the base round stats, his armor got increased by 2, his health got increased by 3, basically. His mana got increased by 2, and his mana regen got jumped by 0.25. Doesn't feel like a lot, but anything that will do will help with his stats. And then the biggest thing is that his base attack speed is up 10% at level 1, and it continues to go up 10% for the rest of your leveling. So it's very strong to get that and get that maxed early.
Yeah, right. Clearly, don't mind Nocturne players building lethal tempo
Yes.
with giving them more attack speed.
Which is interesting because before, I remember when Nocturne's build was the Hella Blades, and now
Hmm.
it just feels like you're trolling if you don't build lethal tempo with this kit, and it feels like Nocturne now. He used to be this assassin that would one shot people with like Warrior and Dustblade, and now you feel like you can build like more of an attack speed build with him and still go lethality, and he's still very strong. So he's just a very interesting champion. Always good to see him kind of exist in the meta because I feel like when you only see tank junglers, it's kind of boring to watch, especially in competitive play. You want to see those. You want to see a jungler who can show off his skill while playing an assassin. It's always fun to see. The next champion I got nerfed is Riven. Riven's cooldown used to go down to 10 seconds max level. Now it's only going to be at 12, which is what the level 1 cooldown is. This is just because Riven was kind of terrorizing solo queue, and it's very oppressive to play against, especially when you have 40% CDR. Your Q is basically like a 6-second cooldown when it was 10-second cooldown. So they decided to nerf it. I'm happy with this. I'm sure the top laner in you is very happy with this rocket.
I don't know. It's kind of weird to nerf her now because I don't really feel like she's that strong at the moment in the
Well, I feel like
even in solo queue.
she has niche matchups that she wins. I feel like depending on how you play it, she could play very well into certain top laners. Maybe not like. See, the thing is that they with the most recent rework that they did with the anti healing, it feels like there's only like a couple really good top laners, but and it just hurts like champions like Riven because Revan relies on healing in her kit, with building Death's Dance and if you buy a Tiamat and that's those kind of items. So the reduced healing definitely doesn't feel good. But I feel like she was decent. She had some matchups. I think she was also pretty good in the jungle. Because her clear was pretty strong, but now we'll see if she gets played at all. Besides your usual Riven one tricks. The next champion, very happy to see Nerf. Yay, yay! I don't ever want to see you in solo queue or in competitive. I'm so tired of seeing the champion get first pick in competitive every single game, which is Sejuani. Holy moly, Sejuani finally got a nerf, and it's not in TFT. It's in League. So the Frost Armor got nerfed by 10 on magic resistance and armor, which is a big deal. Obviously, her passive is what helps her make her very strong. And then obviously the cooldown on her Q just allows her to her early game, she doesn't max her Q, so she's not getting to that level 5 point of her Q until pretty late in the game. So it's pretty good to have a big cooldown on her Q because that's her big offensive or defensive mobility in the game. So I think that's a great thing to do. I don't think they need to nerf her E or her W because it's her jungle clear, and her jungle clear is part of the reasons that keeps her strong, so that keeps her relevant. So I think they shouldn't touch that. I think what they touched was right for Sejuani.
Yeah, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Like I think taking away 10 armor and magic resistance is a huge nerf, especially in the early stages, because the annoying thing is that obviously as Sejuani you kind of want to farm early until 6, and then that's when you can really like punish lanes.
Yep.
And because of the armor magic resist that you'd get like right at the start of the game, the junglers that would generally want to go aggressive early, like Xin Zhao, Jarvan, Kha'Zix, like they don't really feel like they can
fight
Sejuani and get any kills from her. So
yeah, it feels like her early game will be slowed down a lot, and maybe she won't just have complete control of the jungle like she does right now.
yeah, hopefully this just encourages more aggressive jungling, like in pro play.
Yeah, especially with like seeing champions like Nocturne getting buffed, you'd hope that those kind of champions kind of make a rise. And we're tired. We're done seeing the only 3 junglers in the game, which is Skarner, Sejuani, and Gragas. It seems to be like the premier 3. Hopefully, we see some other jungle picks, especially with playoffs and worlds leading up. The next champion that got buffed was Shen. Shen's in a weird place because Shen does true damage of max health. I'm sorry, he does max health, but most champions don't build a lot of health anymore because there's a lot of tanks in the game anymore. It's mostly about fighters. So he doesn't really out duel nor out split push a lot of the fighters that are strong in the game right now. So Shen's in this like really weird place. So any buffs to him are good. So obviously giving 1% target match HP at all levels is very strong on Shen. So make him more viable, and obviously the damage on the E is strong as well. I still don't see a world where Shen exists in pro play. I can see it happening in like team aspects, maybe in like a lower tier game or like in solo queue, just because his ultimate's very strong. But I just don't feel like he has a lot of winning matchups top lane anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shen is kind of that like in a pro play sense, like if you have no faith in your top laner, just put him on Shen.
Yep.
You know.
Hopefully he presses R before someone
That's
dies.
kind of how I feel about him. And the Q buff literally is much more of a buff to his late game because obviously in the later stages that's when you're going to have more health, so that's when it's going to do more damage.
Yeah.
The E buff is probably not going to feel very different.
I wish they would have done something to help him with like killing towers. Like if his Q did more damage to towers later in the game or something. Something to make him more viable as like because of like Shen is this like split pusher who can then join your team with his ultimate. You feel like he should be stronger as a split pusher than he is because he feels very weak and he doesn't win against a lot of split pushers.
Yeah, that's kind of the irony of the champion is that like if let's say the enemy team has an Akali, like you're not going to be able to 1v1 an Akali
or Camille or Fiora
or Camille or Kled or
yeah, like any of the top
champions.
Literally the top laners he can't go toe to toe with at all. Aatrox he can't fight. Camille he can't fight. Akali he can't fight. Kled he definitely can't fight. It's just like he's in an interesting spot. The next champion, which is another top laner that they're decided to buff. Wait, yeah, they are buffing. It's Singed. I wanted to read that again. So his base mana is getting increased. The mana all around is much stronger, so he gets a lot higher mana. Early game, which is good because that's what he uses the most is his mana on his Q. So it's good to see. Mana regen is a little weaker, and the AD is a little stronger, as well as the attack speed. Um, the potion late game is pretty crazy. Level R. You level up that R button. Late game his stats are kind of nuts. But I
What are
st-
the
go ahead.
Sorry, I need to like what are the bonus stats that he gets in the city? I don't think I've ever played Singe.
He gets movement speed, armor, and magic resist.
So they all go up by 90 or
Yeah,
like 36 to 90.
I believe so. I haven't played a lot of Singe besides when I wanted to run it down, but not that I ever do that. But I this is just another champion that doesn't feel strong. Like they're buffing champions that are really low in the totem pole for top lane. That they're hoping that maybe this will make them a little bit more relevant, but they just don't feel strong at all, especially against like the top tier that is right now with Kled and Aatrox and Akali. They just don't feel strong against these kind of champions. Moving on is another champion with Sion. Sion is another one of these champions that's like he's either really strong or he's really bad. There's no middle ground for Sion. Sion doesn't ever feel like he's good. He's either like in pro play every single game, or you never hear of him. Same thing with solo queue. He's either like he's in every single solo queue game in mid and top lane, or he just doesn't exist. Which is where he's at right now. He doesn't exist. So the increases they gave him more base stats. It seems like they really focus on giving some of these top laners that are lower echelon a lot of base stat increases with like one of their abilities and trying to see if this helps them at all. So the base minimum and the base max damage is stronger. The interesting thing is that they made it no longer deals more damage against monsters, which I never even knew it did that. So apparently you can't be a jungler. Sad face on the Sion jungle, but he does more damage in trading.
No, doesn't that buff Silent Jungle? Because it used to be that it only dealt 80% of its damage to monsters.
Oh, I guess it
So now
does.
it deals all damage.
That's
So
still
that'll be
weird.
buffing Silent Jungle.
Or maybe they're just buffing the level 1 int Sion thing that you do, that you like go to the red buff or the chickens and you kill yourself doing them.
Possibly.
That could be a thing. Yeah, that's Sion. Again, another champion I just don't think is very strong, nor will he be, unless the meta rapidly changes before Worlds. I just don't see it happening. Here comes Sivir, another one of these 80 carries that's just very strong. So, this is another champion. They're gutting her early game, which is good, because she's a monster late game. The 400 win condition Sivir is very strong. Especially with enchanters like Yuumi running around. Being able to nerf Sivir's early game so she's not just you just don't feel like you can, when you're playing against Sivir, it's the same thing as an Ezreal. You just get constantly shoved and there's nothing you can do. Like this champion she has no ability, but she's just strong, man. Like so I feel like her W wave clear, especially like if you're behind, you feel fine with Sivir because you can just wave clear with Sivir. Now they're taking that away early games, though, so she really has to get ahead, do a lot of damage with her W, which I'm perfectly fine with. I think it's needed. Sivir and Ezreal are like top echelon 80 carries now for like 2 months. So I'm glad to see other champions, maybe like Tristana, maybe like Caitlyn, a bunch of other champions coming out to be played in the bot lane besides those two.
I would love to see this rise up. Yeah, I think Sivir and Ezreal were in the kind of same category of you just play them both safe and then late game they're super strong. And I think Sivir especially was a lot stronger because she can actually wave clear, whereas at least early against an Ezreal you can like shove in wave.
Yeah, and
lose CS.
That was always the problem. Is like even if you got ahead against a Sivir, you couldn't siege because she would just press W and Q and the wave is gone. So like doing this will help hurt her wave clear, which is good because she shouldn't be allowed to just freely scale into the late game as easily as she can, even while behind. So moving on down, next champion is Sylas.
Oh boy.
Now Sylas's damage reduction applies to minions and monsters, so they're basically trying to tone down the speed in which he jungle clears. They think that he's just too strong in the jungle, which I agree, especially with Conqueror, which you wouldn't really think is a Sylas rune because he's an AP champion, but it's very strong, especially in certain matchups like Sejuani. So now it is toning it down, trying to hurt the clear speed just a little bit, so it's not that he definitely feels like that B tier jungler. You have your before your A tier was Sejuani, Gragas, Skarner, and then B tier was Sylas and like Elise. So it feels like they're definitely trying to bring him down a totem pole, which I think is fine. and bring some other champions. I think they're really trying to get more champions into the light for the jungle role.
Yeah, sort of trying to play a more like have a more even playing field for worlds.
Yeah,
So that you
which
have
is
a much
fine.
bigger variety of
That way you
players.
don't. I think it's fine. That way you don't see a bunch of the same champion. The next champion, which I'm very excited to see as a mid lane mid myself, is seeing Syndra getting buffed. I'm a huge Syndra player. I love playing her. Seeing this buff is very happy for me. Obviously the Q will now do the plus 10 bonus damage against champions. It just Syndra is one of those champions that you get rewarded for hitting your buttons correctly, and having more damage on that will just make you want to play her more and master her more because you're able to you're appreciated for hitting your skills, not just R. Um, so your Q now does more damage, your E now does more damage, especially late game. It does a decent amount of damage. So both of those being able to hit those champions, not just spam your R on the floor and then press R and the AD carry and they blow up, is good to see, especially with her laning phase, because I feel like Syndra wasn't very strong laning phase at all. There was a lot of champions that beat her in laning phase because she's not the highest range mid laner. So you do that with her fact that her stats were pretty weak, made her not very viable. Whereas now I feel like she'll be like an A tier mid laner, not that S tier, but she's right underneath it. Which is fine. I think that she's not really an assassin. She's like a burst mage. So seeing like a burst mage in the meta would be pretty cool to see.
I think this is actually the biggest buff of the patch, like the biggest
Yes,
like
100%.
difference in terms of buff. Like a plus 10% bonus damage is huge.
Yep.
Like especially as a percentage when you consider like
How much
Syndra does
with
so
how much
much damage
AP?
late game.
Yeah, with how much AP that she builds.
hmm
Yeah,
Like I, in my opinion, the Syndra is actually going to be like a priority like mid lane pick
which is
in the meta once 9.16 like goes to pro play.
God bless. Because there's a lot of good Syndra players in pro play that you can watch and learn a lot from, like
hmm
Caps.
I think you're saying God
Jensen.
bless because there's a lot of NA mid laners that are
Well,
really good at Syndra.
like Jensen. Obviously, he doesn't exist anymore in pro play outside of the Gauntlet. But you know, that's pretty cool to see. Like, those are some really good Syndra players in EU and NA that are very good, even in Korea, that are very good at this champion. So being able to see it and getting it played to the highest level, where there's more damage amplified, just means it'll be picked more frequently, which is very good to see. Because I'm tired of seeing this year Corki every game. So let's go. Something other than those two champions, I'm happy with.
Woohoo.
Tom Kench got nerfed. They're trying to bench the Kench, unfortunately. Um, Tom Kench just feels like it's very strong in the bot lane. It's funny because I remember when they tried to make him a top laner after they nerfed the support, Tom Kench with the W slow. They're like, oh, this is a top laner now. They buffed his
Dude,
Q.
Riot really don't know what to do with this champion. I'm not gonna lie.
This is another one of these champions that
They're
they just don't know what to
constantly
do.
buffing him, then like changing him, then nerfing him again.
I
And
think what's
they really
funny
don't know what to do with this
is
champion.
that I think LeBlanc has been in the game longer, but I'm pretty sure Tom Kench has seen more different variations of his champion than LeBlanc has. LeBlanc's
For
gone
sure.
through a lot of different changes, but like Tom Kench, I feel like Tom Kench is up there with Rise, like with the amount of times that they've tried to change. It was when he first came out, he was a top laner, 100%.
hmm
Then he was support. Then they tried to make him more of like they increase his like jungle damage, and then to make him like a jungler, and then they put him in the top lane again, and then it's just this champion's everywhere. But bottom line, Tom Kench got nerfed, making him more vulnerable early game, and as well as shield with his shield duration on the thick skin, which is I think is what keeps him the most viable because of that ability to live for so much tank as much damage as he can, while not really being that tanky. He's not really building a lot of tank items. He just has so much HP that he's very hard to kill. So I think the shield duration nerf is a good nerf. Going down to the next champion that should have been nerfed on release is Yuumi. Yumi's very strong. This is her like what third patch in a row of being nerfed, I think.
hmm
So it's a big deal. These nerfs are tremendous, by the way. The empowered damage is down a lot, especially late game. It's 50 damage decrease. Her slow is gutted early game, which is good because it feels like that slow, man. Unless you have tenacity, like you can't move. Like when it was at 40% level 1, you literally lose all traits because you're able to set up so many combos with your AD carry. The slow duration was just put stagnant at 1.5, which is good, and the cooldown got nerfed. All this is good to help her early game. She's way too strong. She makes way too many bad AD carries look good. Um, like a lot of champions that really shouldn't be in the meta that are getting played, but they can't because they're able to scale because the Yumi's carrying them through the early game.
Yeah. I think obviously there are a lot of support Yumi mains that are going to be very upset by this, but I completely agree with the slow. Like one of the more recent games that I played, I was playing against the Varus Yumi. So
Eh.
literally, as soon as Yumi hits Q, Varus
Varus
charges up
presses,
his Q, hits it.
and
Like
then
you
and then
can't
he
dodge that.
presses E to slow you too. Oh, that sounds terrifying.
It's absolutely awful. There are so many like poke matchups that can go well with Yumi.
Yeah, poke is
Um,
very strong with
so,
Yumi.
and I think the big sort of identity behind Yumi is like the fact that you can't target her until you kill the champion that she's attached to,
Or you play Volley
which I
Bear.
think is like that's like a massive advantage in itself.
Yes.
So she was always going to be strong. And that's why I think like massive nerfs needed to be made.
Yeah, that's why I was always scared of this champion upon release because it's like okay, it's support that you can't target. It heals you. You can jump from ally to ally, healing you, and it does a lot of damage. There's
And I'm
nothing.
pretty sure I think it was whilst like professional play was on 9.14. I think Yumi was the only champion that was always picked or banned
Yep, it was
like
100%.
every
Yeah,
game.
100% pick ban ratio. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, happy to see Yumi getting nerfed. Moving on down. Next one we're going to is Ziggs, a champion we have not seen in a very long time. This is another champion. They're doing something similar to Echo in this sense, where they're buffing one of his abilities to help with maybe his escaping, which is similar to Echo. Echo's E got increased cooldown and damage because it's his escape option. And same thing with Ziggs. The W is the escape option. Now it's also
Mhm.
what kills turrets. So we might be seeing a stronger turret demo comp with Ziggs, with the ability power going up, and then obviously the cooldown is going to decrease, so you can play a little bit more aggressively, have that W up a little bit faster, and as well as now the R cooldown is down 20 seconds at level 2, or I'm sorry, level 3. This is strong because you can throw basically chuck an R, wait 50 seconds, chuck another R. So this is another strong champion. He's very good to wave clear. He's not very good at much else. He's a very weird spot, like Zareth. Um, where they're like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. It just takes like depends if you want wave clear or not. But I don't particularly find him as like a very strong mid laner.
Well, I think the Mega Inferno Bomb is actually quite a huge buff, especially when you consider it from like a pro play perspective, because when it comes to pro play, they always want like
Zone control.
there's a huge priority with mid laners that have very good wave management, and
Yeah,
having the ability to like press the R button and suddenly an entire wave is gone.
yeah,
You know, it's like the same value as Ezreal with his R. Like if you can clear like a wave that's like half the map away from you, that's a huge like advantage to have as a mid laner. So
yeah. That's what
I
makes
mean,
Gangplank
you never
relevant.
know. We could see him maybe in pro play. I'd like to see it.
It would take a
Um,
lot. There'd have to be a lot of mid laners nerfed. I mean, banned for that to happen, but it could happen.
yeah, that's just what I'd really like to see. I think it'd be awesome to see Ziggs again.
Plus, I feel like Ziggs is one of those champions that he's like Vel'Koz, where like there's those niche players that play these champions because they put a lot of hours into these champions,
Hmm.
although they're not like top tier. But like you have to be able to play it in pro play. You have to put a lot of hours into this champion to understand the skill shots, how they work, how you can stop it. So it just seems like it's a harder chance to get going. Um, Biscuit delivery got nerfed. It did get nerfed. I'm sad. Why? Did it get nerfed? Wait. Bit.
It's been changed essentially. So I think what they're trying to do now with biscuit delivery, basically a lot of AD carries would take it. A lot of I'd say pretty much all laners would
Everyone,
take
yeah.
biscuit delivery, just because hey, it's essentially bonus potions, right? But I think what it looks like they're trying to do with these changes, they're trying to make it more of an option for laners that get bullied a lot early. So like, oh, you know, within 6 minutes you have these three free potions
Yeah.
instead of potions that are coming every 3 minutes up to 12 minutes to help you like sustain basically throughout the laning phase.
Yeah.
It's sort of to help out champions like, let's say, for example, like Nasus in the top lane, or I don't know who gets bullied a lot in the mid lane early.
Rise.
Rise, yeah, that's a good example. Just these champions that like can't trade at all early game, and struggle a lot. I think they're just trying to sort of niche this
Yeah.
like rune to those kind of champions.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting change.
Instead of just saying, "Oh, have some free potions."
I think to me, secondary runes, it feels like you're either building inspiration or sorcery, unless you're really building like something that's gonna, like your tank. It just feels like they're like the strongest, especially for mid lane. It feels like you're either bringing inspiration as your secondary for a lot of it, and you're getting like most people get the boots and biscuit delivery, so maybe they'll just be able to see other things get brought out, which is always kind of cool. I'm not gonna go over ARAM changes because honestly, if you're playing ARAMs, you're a bot. Moving on down. The new Honor 5 Chroma rewards debut at 9.16.
I mean, you shouldn't even pay attention to those dudes. Come on,
Listen,
you're
dude,
not Honor 5.
I'm Honor 4.5. I have 2 points in Honor 4 already, good sir.
Are you excited to get that Warwick / Twitch skin?
I'd be happy if I got the Twitch skin. I would not be happy if I got a Grey Warwick skin. But
Wait, what's wrong with Greywick?
I don't like Warwick. He's too
You're not a fan of
boring.
Greywick?
He's boring. Your Honor 5 capsule will now contain a random emote or ward skin, as well as the Honor 5 token you can get to get one of these skins and the chromas if you already have the skin. You need to buy the skin before you have the chroma, which is cool because there's a lot of people that don't have these skins. What is this? You get 2 tokens. Wow.
Poggers.
If you hit Honor 5 before 9.16 and already own both, we will add 2 Honor 5 tokens directly to your account. What? Honor 5, dude. Something so
Dude,
toxic.
if anybody's on a level 5, get onto League ASAP.
Yep. What is happening with ranked here? Not that we're ever going to get to this rank, but let's see. For Unifying Challenger at Grandmaster, 0 LP demotion rules with Masters existing rules. This is mainly an edge case change, since losing LP over a few days or weeks naturally demotes players into Masters before they reach 0 LP. Though in smaller servers, it can also address situations where you're impossible to demote out of Challenger. Really? Losing a game at 0 LP in Grandmaster or Challenger demotes you to Diamond 1 with 75, 50, or 0 LP, depending on whether your MMR is higher than the Master cutoff. Wow.
I think the reason why they're doing this is mainly for the smaller regions. Because if you think about a smaller region, there won't be nearly as many people in Master. So if you get demoted to Master 0 LP from Challenger, like you won't have to gain that much LP to go back into Challenger. So
that's crazy. Big drop though. That's pretty interesting. A bunch of bug fixes. Are there any skins that come out? Of course there's skins. There's gotta be skins. It's League of Legends.
Yeah, there's Chad Udyr.
So there's the Dragon Oracle Udyr and the Hextagram. Did they have pictures of them? Don't buy it though. If you buy this skin, you're not a Tree 2G fan. The Hextech Ramos. So that'll do it.
Okay with that skin?
Yeah, they're pretty okay.
Good.
That'll do it for the patch notes, guys. Thank you guys for watching, clicking on the link for our first YouTube video here with Rocket Wind on the charge. Want to get a little shout out, Rocket?
Around, dude. Dude, my name's Rocket Wind. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, dude. And it comes streaming back eventually, whether it's on Twitch or make sure we don't know.
We
won't know. We'll find out eventually. Make sure you can click the links down below to our social medias. If you have any questions, always feel free to hit us up on there. Okay? Have a good one, guys.